Well, hello everybody. How you doing? Welcome back to Jedi Granville Productions. I am Jedi Granville, and just in case you didn't know, I am black, but don't let that deter you from watching this. Uh, and with me, I have my good friend, good buddy, YouTube channel partner here, Mr. DJ Anubis. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much. Glad to be
And
here.
And before we get started, let me get some of these comments out the way. Just let us know. Mr. Kevin Lambert's in the house. How you doing, Kevin? And let me see what's this. It's like, yes, we're about to go back in time, brother. We're about to do this, and here we got Mr. Jake Hall in the house too. How you doing, Jake? All right.
We left the DeLorean. We don't have
Yes,
a
we did.
DeLorean to go back in time today.
You
So
can't
it's
do
got
that,
to be,
no.
it has to be a different time machine this time.
Yes, but
Oh, wait, do we have
Jake,
the hot tub? Do we have the hot tub?
well,
time?
now we could have that too. I mean, that would. Well, I don't know. Here's the question: would you rather have?
He's really not Jedi Granville. He's Craig Robinson. Okay,
There
so
you go. See, yes, see, I'm different persona there. But no. In case anyone doesn't see, if anyone who's watching and hasn't figured this out, we're going to be talking about a very delicate subject, and that is dealing with the 80s. The 80s, a time where everything was so simplistic, but then again, it was so extraordinary. It was just something of a time that just, I don't think you could put it in a particular box in terms of what the 80s was. I mean, the 80s was just, what's the best description you can give the 80s? I mean, what's your take on that as far as what you can describe it as?
you know, it is interesting about the 80s because like it changed a lot of things, especially in terms of entertainment. So the biggest thing that hit in 1980 was MTV. Like I just remembered it was like a big fucking deal when it first happened. Like the very first video of the Buggles video killed the radio star. So like the minute that happens, like, you get to watch videos of bands and like, start checking out bands. It was actually almost like if you ever been to Tower Records back in the day, the listening stations, this was what MTV initially was. You got the chance to see artists and music that you had never heard before. And like, that's how you kind of learned about bands. Like for me, that was my biggest inspiration in terms of like, oh, Van Halen, cool. Rat, oh, Motley Crue, this is cool. Yeah. Oh wait, we got LL Cool J on here. We got all these other these pop bands. Like, the 80s pop was a big thing. Yeah. So MTV was very big. And then, of course, you still had stuff like social issues. So, with Reagan being president and the stuff going on with Russia, with the Cold War and stuff like that. So there was a lot going on during the 80s that many people of today's generation don't know about, like aside from history lessons, right? That's about it. So you and I, we got to live a lot of that. And then even so, the Satanic Panic, all that stuff that's going on. And the very first time that the PMRC started doing the labels on music because to try to protect kids and stuff, even though it kind of worked against them because if you saw the label, it's like, ooh, I want this. Yes. It's the thing you're not supposed to have. So there was a lot going on, a lot of big hair, crazy clothes. Michael Jackson was a big influence on clothes with his style. We saw that sort of with the Beverly Hills Cop Eddie Murphy movie where he's kind of laughing at the guys that are dressed
just like
right. So there was a lot going on in the 80s that I can't say I missed the looks all that much, but I do miss the era for some of the other stuff that was involved at the time. So
right. Well, now and the fact that you and I, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Maybe not obvious. We don't look it, but me and Anubis are 70s babies. We come out of the 70s, born and raised in that time, and like anything else, we know that the 70s was, a crazy, decade and everything. Well, the thing about it is we didn't understand it, and probably because we were children, we just lived through it, and we just know that stuff like Vietnam was coming to an end, about the gas shortage, all that stuff, all different. I mean, Iran was going. I mean, this stuff like that, we just thought as normal. We just thought it as the norm, because we, like I said, then we were kids. We didn't understand it. Like we just knew it was normal. Jumping to the 80s, it's a whole other bag of like, okay, I feel like I'm about to lose my innocence here because I feel like, I don't know how you feel, but I feel like when I entered the 80s, I thought that I could contain my innocence in terms of my child, but it's like, no, my friend, you're about to lose your innocence pretty well because the thing about the 80s was that it had a nostalgia that just was, an aesthetic that just makes you realize this is a totally different. And even when we, like I said, when we left the 80s, getting the 90s, it's like, no, the 80s is something that you just can't erase. It's just like it's an enigma that stayed with you too thick and thin. And I feel like, you just can't get rid of it. It's just something that it was something about it. And you said the movies, the music, the styles, and anything political going on. It's like it was there. It was instilled in your brain for life, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I see that you got a few things here. I'm assuming that
That's me.
that's you. Now, see, I
Indeed.
would
That's
never
me.
recognize. Now, see, I could see a little bit of that you, but it's like, wow, that's a teenage Anubis there.
Yeah,
Okay,
all those are me. Different, throughout the late '80s, pretty much.
okay, and that's you there. Okay, and that's I
Yep.
like the shirt there, the rat shirt there. I was like,
And
okay,
those glasses, I think those were the ones that used to have the rubber around them. So do you remember those?
yes.
And they'd wrap around your head.
Oh my God!
Those are
And then now see this. Now, truth be told, this seems like a typical you right here. This seems like, because I've seen a lot of guys back then, either white or black, taking a guitar and just like, sometimes air guitar, but actually have a guitar and playing it. And I'm
yeah.
assuming you were an artist playing a guitar, right?
I was trying. I never really got where I needed to be with it. I played a little bit of guitar, a little bit of drums, but never stuck with any of it. So yeah. So now I just love it and talk about it.
Right. Say, well, you brought up something about Tower Records, earlier, and this is something I think we need to get out of the way real quick. Now we do have, well, remnants of malls. I mean, there's, but remember where malls used to be such a gargantuan thing back in the 80s. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I didn't go to my first the mall that I have out now. It's pretty much become a derelict type of thing. It's a remnant of the past. But the malls back then, I mean, I think you can agree with me. The malls back then were just a haven for, and I think we fit the narrative pretty well. We the perfect age for that. It was just a haven for teenagers all around. I mean, anyone who's a teenager, that's like, this is where we meet up with our friends. This is where we go to the hottest spots or go to the movies or whatever. This is the perfect haven for teenagers at that time. It feels like the 80s was perfect for that kind of place for us to hang out in. And I'm like, I don't know how you were about it. I mean, I don't know if you went to the mall as much as I did, but
Always, because the thing about the malls was that if you were a parent, you could literally drop your kids off there. They had arcade there, they had movie theaters there, they had food courts, just constant shopping. So like, if you needed a break from your teenagers and you wanted them to go and like just get them out of your hair for a couple hours, that's where you would go. And a lot of times as kids, that's what we want, because that's how girls and guys would meet up. So if you liked a girl in school, like, hey, meet me at the mall like on Saturday at such and such time, and then also if you weren't even meeting somebody, that's how you would go to scope out girls or whatever. That was the way that you went about doing it, because even up into the early 90s, my friend and I, and of course we're in our 20s by then, we would do that. We would still go to the mall because it was such a habit to like go and pick up girls and see who was all there. That was just the way to do it.
And that was the thing, I mean, and like you said, I'm like you, I mean, a mall was still a place to go to, but like anything else, it was unfortunately like technology, like the time switching and everything. Malls are, and I don't know if you have any malls in your area now, but I mean, the mall in my area, they're pretty much drying up. There's fewer, you know, uh, places there in this side. I mean, I haven't been to the mall. I believe it or not, I haven't been to the mall where I'm at, living at near me. I've been there in like 6 years now, and all I can tell you is from a glance of it, I mean, this is like this is not the place that I grew up on. This is not the place I went to go to. You know, I mean, it's like just like it's like
There was a mall when we were still in Baltimore that it's still open and it still has some shops, but dude, like there were so many shops and there were so many places
mhm,
that were closed that didn't have any kind of company in them at all. So like no one is leasing anything in there because there's no traffic in there.
right,
And of course, some of the issues too is that over time, with the influx of youngsters and stuff, that violence becomes a thing.
mhm,
Kids would end up getting in fights, and that then you had to put security in there. So eventually, families just didn't want to go anymore, and so they won't take their kids to basically a slaughterhouse. They just don't want to do that. Um, but luckily for most of the 80s, that was never really kind of an issue. It was just, it was just so packed, like you said. Like, now if I go into a mall out here, like there's one down in Ocean City area, like if you go over there, like there's some people there, but not even close to what it used to be. It used to be packed all the time.
yeah,
The only time you see it packed now is maybe during Christmas, like when it picks up a little bit, but
mhm,
outside of that, it's like a ghost town.
yeah. And that's pretty much what it's become. It's become a little ghost town. It's just it's funny how it's become dilapidated. It's just not what it used to be, you know. And I guess it's just like I say, it's just another remnant of the '80s that I still hold dear, knowing that that was a place to hang out with. But like I say, everything has to change, and as we have to change along with it. But speaking of as teenagers, high school. Well, let's kind of start junior high and high school days. I'm assuming that your high school days, or at least your high school, I mean, at least the high school days, they were more pleasant, or they were just like you're trying to get through them. Because I know for me, I know it was more like a like I'm trying to do like Rambo. I'm trying to be like survival instinct. I'm trying to survive and get through because it was always a typical popular kids, or
Mhm.
you got to fit into this crowd. And for me, and personally for me, I don't know how about you, but personally for me, I never fit in no narrative when I went to high school. It was just like I'm just trying to survive to get through here, and hopefully, I mean, true enough, there were some hard times, but there were some good times, But just getting through, I mean, because it was like, who? I mean, I was trying to figure out who am I, who am I in terms of
Yeah.
going to school, back then, especially during the '80s, So I don't know how you dealt with it in terms of when it came to school at that point in time in your life.
Well, when I was younger, obviously, I wasn't really a big social butterfly.
Mhm.
I'm a bit of an introvert, so like being bullied and stuff was something that really did happen to me. Not
Mhm.
nothing mad, totally tragic, but enough to be unnerving at times of growing up. Um, but then around my junior year, I changed my look. I kind of changed
Mhm.
my attitude, and obviously, uh, that changed in terms of my social ability to talk to people, girls, whatever. And so when I did that, it helped out a lot in terms of just kind of breaking out of my shell. But yeah, it was tough, man. Like but like that's why I kind of like look now and I say, and I don't want to go too off the beaten path here, but I told myself the other day, I said, it's good that I didn't have access to a gun or have the ability to shoot a gun. Like some parents will teach their young kids to shoot. I
Yes.
don't think that's a good idea because we're not mentally mature at that age to really handle the stress of being a kid. And so like when bad things happen to us, we lash out before we think. And I think to myself, with all some of the shit that I went through, what would have happened if I would have had access to a weapon? Would I have been one of those people that just couldn't take the strain? Like if I thought the end of the world was there because I was getting picked on, that I went and killed some kids or the kids responsible. Like, I sit there and I say to myself, like, I'm just glad I didn't have that. And I think that that's the one mistake that a lot of parents make in the modern day, is that they think they're doing something cool by teaching their kids how to use guns, whether it's for hunting or whatever. But the reality is, you're putting a weapon of destruction into the hands of somebody who's not really mentally mature enough to handle that. So when something goes wrong and they have access to it, it leads to bad things. So I think that's one reason why, as time has gone on, school shootings have gotten worse and worse, because they're not really thinking this shit out. And I don't know where you fall on that, but that's just kind of how I see it. Like I got bullied and I didn't like it, but at the same time, it made me better as a person to understand that, that shit happens. It just does.
Well, sad to say, I did fall in line with that, and I'm kind of like you. I'm actually glad that. But I will share this little tidbit, real quick, and we'll get back on the fun stuff, because I feel this is something that needs to be addressed. Because, like you, I was the shyest kid in the school. I was the shyest kid on the block. I was, like I say, an introvert and everything. And
Yeah.
like I said, I was a basic nerd, basic geek and everything. But the thing about it is, bullying, it's just a standard, just something that kids do. But when it affects someone to a great to a moment where it's going to affect you so bad that like you say, hopefully you don't have something in your hand that will harm someone to that extent. And I'll just share this little moment that is an example of why I feel like that moment in time is like, you just wish you can take it back, but you can't. It's something that happens. It happens. I know I got ridiculed by this one kid, and he used to mess with me regardless. He just messed with me. Period. Just through the school year and everything. And I feel like, okay, dude, you need to just leave me alone. Just leave me alone. I mean, you leave me alone. I'll leave you alone. And I'm trying not to escalate. I'm trying to de-escalate this thing. This one day, I was outside. It was at recess, and I'm just minding my business. And then there was some construction going on at this time at school. And this is a junior high during this time. This is when this happened. And there was some like broken masonry, bricks and everything around, and I mean, I don't think they had safety hazards like they do now, keep kids away
Yeah.
from stuff. Well, anyway, I figure like, okay, just don't, do anything drastic, because he's messing with you. Just ignore it. I mean, even though you're a kid, ignore it. Okay, there was a piece of brick that I saw, and this dude decides to throw a piece of brick at me. So I was like, okay, like, and because he had been like I said, he'd been ridiculing me all through the year. So it's like, just don't retaliate. But I picked up the brick, I picked up another piece of brick, and I was about to throw it and say, Walter, use better judgment. Don't do it. Don't lash out. Just be a better person. Okay, the better person lost in the incident, because this person picked up that same piece of broken brick, threw it at my head, hit me at the base of my neck there. And let me just say, if you ever wanted to see an ugly version of Jedi Granville, of Walter Ross, that was a moment in my life I wish I could turn back the hands of time and say, walk away, just walk. Well, I picked up that same brick, and before he can dodge across behind the building, I was so enraged, threw that brick at him. I think I'm going to miss. Please, I'm like, I want to hit him, but just miss. I struck him dead in his head, and he was, I caused him injury, and I was just like, and I said to myself, like, Walter, why'd you do this? Why'd you, it's like, these are moments where I feel, during the 80s, and like I say, if you're kind of a person like was going in that time, if you allow yourself to be in that moment, you can't help it. You're a child, basically. You're not mature enough to say, just walk the fuck away. But at the same time, you realize like, okay, you got to take a stand somewhere, And I mean, I just wish it was a better way of doing that. But this is where you realize somehow, especially during the school years, the academic people who are over all this, they're, I mean, they know that kids are gonna be the kids, but I don't think they really put their foot into saying what needs to be done in order to enforce this. They think like they're kids, they come to teach, they learn, they go home, and they could come back and do it again. But they don't know the ramifications of kids picking on other kids and knowing how that affects them. So when I did that, I realized I reached my boiling point, and I realized like, okay, this is just how it is. And this is why I was saying about survival in terms of do not act upon your emotions, because the second you do, it's going to happen. Like, and I feel like you, I'm thankful that I didn't have access to a knife or a gun or something like that, because I could have easily have taken out some of the people who did something to me. But knowing that happened, it taught me a lesson about who I am. It showed that Walter has a dark side, but I know I scared myself worse than I scared anybody else, because I'm capable of doing something truly, dark. And I didn't want to know that person, because knowing that I can do that showed a lot about my persona. And this is why I said before earlier, the 80s, you're going to lose your innocence, but that's a moment where I really lost part of myself in terms of what my innocence was when I was growing up in the 70s. The 80s pretty much taught me that you're going to have to learn to know that you're coming more into the adult world, and you're not going to be the same person that you were when you were as a kid. Because when I say little kid, you're going to be something totally different.
Yeah, the other thing is too is like just in terms of like you brought up how you had different cliques. So you had like your jocks, your stoners, or the nerds, or whatever you want to call them. And I kind of learned like, even when I looked at like a movie like Breakfast Club, and I say to myself, well, I'm outside of Claire, I'm probably like a little bit of all those guys. Like there's a little bit of something in there, because I was a bit nerdy, but I loved sports and I loved heavy metal music. So like there was a little bit of everything in me. And so, but it was always made you feel like you had to be one or the other. Like the way that school was is like you had to be in these certain cliques. And I always didn't understand that a lot of times, because like I'd be hanging with my friends who like metal, but I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go play some basketball. They're like, what? Like, yeah, I'm gonna go play some basketball, man. I love playing sports, And so I learned as I got into my 20s, like it's okay for me to like Obituary and then like Prince. Like it was not a problem. Even though it might be frowned upon by some metalheads, is like, I like what I like, man. What can I tell you?
See? Yes, that's the thing. You're like me. I'm like you. It's like you're a multitaskable individual. You like certain subjects and you love all these other things. And it's like, and I know for me, I didn't belong. And that's why I said I didn't belong to a certain group, certain clique. And it's like, I mean, I have to express me, I have to express who I am, that's just how it is. You have to enjoy what you love, but at the same time, you can't be, with that particular setting, as the saying goes, just how it is.
But you brought up also about how the 80s changed and like in that decade. And one of the biggest changes that I saw obviously was from the early part of the 80s, cassettes were a really big thing.
Yeah.
And then by the time we got to the end, it was CDs. But I used to just love cassettes, even now that I still collect them a little bit. It's really that fun part of retro. Now, for some people, like I used to do power washing with this guy who's long passed by now, but he grew up in the era of 8-tracks.
Oh, yes, so, I remember the 8-tracks.
He still had, actually, in his work truck, he still had the player for 8-track. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. I said, holy cow, that's awesome.
That's a cool thing. Now, you brought up the Breakfast Club. Let's kind of touch. I mean, we'll get to movies in general, but I want to touch on a particular person who directed said movies back then, John Hughes.
John Hughes, yeah.
I think I don't know what it was, but he literally honed in a lot of the stuff that some of us, like you and me, growing up in the 80s, like 16 Candles,
Yeah.
like you say, Breakfast Club, and of course, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, these films, I mean, these are things that I feel like he really channeled what some of us, because like I say, he did the so-called, comedy thing, but at the same time, he gave the aesthetic of what a teenager dealt with. Some of us, I mean, some of us were, as you say, someone was the jock, someone was the greaser, someone was, uh,
Well,
this,
yeah, because he touched on a lot of interests. That's a great point that you're making,
mhm,
because you look at Breakfast Club, you look at Weird Science or Uncle Buck,
yeah,
or even Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And like, as funny as those movies are, there's always a scene or scenes in there that hit you really hard to where you're actually in tears.
yes,
And, after watching the recent John Candy doc, that whole thing in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, like how he likes, I like me, when you find out that his character lost his wife and he's just lonely. So
yeah,
they go through all this craziness between him and Steve Martin's character, where they're just like chaos collided. But
right,
by the end of it, Martin's character starts to understand like why he is who he is, and so that's Hughes was very good at like bringing that in. So even like Breakfast Club with uh, the young nerdy guy, I forget his actor's name, but Michael C. Hall. Uh,
mm,
he they're going through the reasons why they're in detention, and some of it's funny, and then they get to him, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my god, we're talking about maybe a possible suicide, even though he's trying to do it with a flare gun. But the
right,
reality is, it's the theme behind it
mhm,
that hits hard. And then with Andy Estevez character being a bully, like they have to reflect on their own personal issues of being there, despite being in different groups. And
right.
I thought Hughes did a really good job of addressing those things in that movie.
See. And it's interesting when you brought out about John Candy's character in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It's weird because me and Anthony and another guy talked about the film, but it's almost an analogy that with Candy, he's lonely, and I think that's the reason why where he is, but he misses his wife. But the fact that that moment where, and I kind of said this on his channel, but when he's in the car and it's snowing and everything, it was like he was saying how he was repeating something that his wife said and everything. It's almost like he was about to. It's almost like he was about to accept dying at that moment,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
it's like if you look at that moment, he literally is like he's cold and everything, but he's like, you know what, I can accept it now. I can accept, just freezing. I can go to sleep. I can be joining with my wife. And I feel like that's such a beautiful. I mean, that's why I say it's good to balance those things with what Hughes did, the comedy, but with the drama, and it's like, wow, and when I saw the film, because I didn't see the film until like in my late 20s, but when I saw it again recently, I was like, this man really had honed in something that really shows how, people's arc is, in terms of, and like I say, with the teenagers. I mean, I mentioned another film that he did. What I say did, but didn't direct, like Pretty in Pink and Some Kind of Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
They really hone in people's thought process about, who wants to be popular, who wants to be with someone, and who, But it doesn't. But he's really showing that everyone is almost like the same individual, but they just different ways of expressing themselves, And I feel like that's kind of hard to do, I mean, like with Ferris Bueller, um, the main character, is he's like just off the chain, doing anything. But as it turns out, the main character arc is Cameron. Cameron is
Mm-hmm.
the one that is like, I mean, I can't stand it. I mean, my parents, they're a joke, and everything. But he's someone that says, I'm just tired of being afraid. I'm just tired of being this. And to see him break out of what he was going through, it really makes you realize, like, okay, all Ferris really is a side character, where Karen is the main character, because he's the one who has to indulge in where his journey is going, where he's going to be, and everything. So it's like it's amazing how Hughes did this. And he was in his 40s, but no, he was in his 30s. I'm sorry, he was in his 30s. I mean, I used the man too well. He was in his 30s at this time, but amazing how he was able to give us a very realistic view of what adolescent teenagerism was back then. I mean, like I say, knowing it came out during the 80s, I feel like he was a genius doing it that way. And I mean, like you said, when you mentioned planes, trains, and automobiles, and even she's having a baby, it's amazing how he was able to do these things very well, but not like throw it in your face kind of motif, which I like.
Yeah.
So, but no, getting back on, like I say, we mentioned some about John Hughes. Let's just kind of deal with style now. Let's kind of mention about styles. You mentioned something about where you changed your style I'm assuming in the early 80s, something like that, around your I guess you could say
As far as my look,
your looks.
So basically my freshman and sophomore year, I was still kind of the nerdy guy with the bowl haircut, and just really, this was after the fact.
Okay.
Obviously when Miami Vice came out, the idea was I was gonna be Don Johnson in some crazy way, right? So that was sort of the direction I had gone in my junior year. So and the thing is, it is interesting because when I kind of attribute it to like spring cleaning, right? So when I finally went to my mom, who was a hairdresser, I said, look, I want to change my look. I want to try something different because I'm tired of being who I am. Like, I'm tired of being picked on. I'm tired of being lonely and not talked to. And it really is kind of interesting because even just with a new look, you can kind of like, when girls start to notice you, you're like, oh, okay, cool. This is fun. So, it wasn't like I was some animal magnetism or anything, but when I did change my look, people liked it. I got even positive reception from other guys, not so much in a gay way or anything, but just they saw me differently than I had been. And so they were kind of like proud that, oh, look, he's coming out of his shell. Let's, come hang out, come do this. And so it just led, obviously it got me into trouble because as I got into my senior year, I started discovering booze and partying and stuff like that. So then just, but either way, it was a big change from where I was. And I can't really say that I regret changing. I wish maybe I'd changed my look long before that, but it is what it is.
Yeah, because I know with me, my brothers, I'm pretty sure you remember the good old Jerry curl that came out in the early 80s. I mean, my brothers, both of them, they were styling stuff like, I mean, it was like the Jerry curls, I try to do that. But at the same time, I realized, like, dude, that's too much work. I mean, that's like, you got to wear this ball cap. You got to wear this cap on, make sure it don't dry out. You got to make sure that, you got to spray this chemicals. I'm like, no. And I like I say, I tried that. But at the same time, I'm like, dude, no. I mean, I rather just cut my hair either bald, and trust me, that was a crucifixion if you cut your hair bald. This is before, Jordan and them, when being bald was cool. If you cut your hair bald, you get that's a crucifixion. You get crucified with that, But sometimes you have to do that. I would try at least, do the flat top, and I didn't do the flat top until the late 80s. I did the flat top once.
Was that when House Party and all that came out? Was that sort of the thing?
Around that time. But it was like we say, it was coming into its own, but House Party really signified it at the time. And that's another thing. Yo MTV Raps came out in the late 80s, and it really started to show that functioning of, for the more of the black community and everything, showing that they had style and whatever, And I think that's another thing you brought out, with MTV. They were able to hone in the styles for teenagers who were growing up, because Madonna, Cyndi Lauper, hell, even Lita Ford, were giving things for the ladies, changing it up, wearing that long hair and everything, kind of whatever. But at the same time, there was aesthetic where they had guys, doing the sometimes they do the long hair, doing the rocker, like the Thompson twin look, or the
Mhm.
Motley Crue, kind of looking and everything. I mean, it's all and then again, you remember the old holes in the jeans, all that
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, and I'm gonna tell you something right now. The schools back then, when my kids came to school with holes in it, boy, I mean, it's like the teachers or the administration couldn't get with that. It's like, we are not allowing you to have holes in your pants. I mean, it's like either have it so much up, or it's like you're getting the hell out of here. You're going home. It's like it's not.
I had holes in my knees and my crotch.
Yeah,
I had everywhere.
I mean, it was just an aesthetic. But here's the thing: I'm trying to think. Do you remember? Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, we know why you have those holes.
Kevin, we'll leave that alone. We'll just say,
we'll leave that alone.
But I'm thinking that speaking of that kind of fashion, do you remember a certain thing that they used to do? I don't know if they did it in your part of the neighborhood, where they took the well, like I say, we will leave it alone. We'll leave that for imagination. Remember when these jackets had removable sleeves,
Yep.
and kids, I don't know if they did that in your area, but they used to take the removable sleeves off these jackets and actually wear them on their legs. I don't know if they ever did that around your
They probably did. I mean, I don't think that was something that I did too often, like as far as own, but I do kind of remember them. So chances are, if they're doing that, sure.
But it was just that. I mean, it was that style, and I'm just like, my God. I mean, to me, I found it kind of weird, and then
Do you remember the moon boots?
Do I remember the moon boots? I'm trying to remember the moon boots. See, and it's funny you bring up the moon boots, because I remember I was starting to think about the British Knights. Was it British Knights? British Knights shoes? I think it's British Knights. But anyway, yeah. No, I remember that one. I mean, that's why I say so many things that was going on during that time. I might have missed that one. I might have overlooked that one,
I remember girls, at least, because you see usually in the workout videos had like the socks, like the big leggings or whatever at the bottom.
With the leotards. Now I did. Yeah. Is that what you mean? The not the leg warmers. I'm thinking you're talking about something else.
Yeah, the moon boots are the big, like literal, like snow boots that.
Okay. Now, I know what you're talking about. Yes, I do. No, but I do know. And the funny thing is, I remember the leg warmers. I thought that was kind of cool, for the ladies to be wearing, because that was kind of. And I feel like that's the thing right there with the ladies, well, at least the teenage girls. It was a form of maturing in that sense, because as you say, music, and that's another thing. Music videos were such an influencing thing for anyone growing up at that time. It was just
100%. Like whether it's your hair, whether it's your like earring, whether it's the clothing you're wearing, it was all an influence. Like even for girls, it was huge with like the Cyndi Lauper, Madonna looks. They were totally going after that.
Yes. Well, now, knowing that all that fashion and everything, do you feel a little bit of nostalgia whenever you see certain things that click and you just like automatically, it's like, wow, I kind of dealt with that, or I was indulged into that. I actually did that back then with you. I'm asking you. I'm asking DJ.
Oh yeah. Obviously with the Rock, I did like the holes in the jeans and stuff like that. But the other thing is, like, even though I didn't really dress the part, like the one big fad that I got into in the early 80s, and I'm pretty sure you probably did too, was the break dancing.
Yes, the break dancing.
You would see my ass carry my cardboard with me at like 11 or 12 years old, and trying to do me and my friends, we would just get the beatbox out, the ghetto blaster, and have it The whole nine, everything that you see stereotype wise in the modern films now that go
Yes.
back to that. Yes, that's what we did.
And look here, I'm gonna tell you right now. I strategically tried to do the windmill. I literally tried to do
Yes.
that thing, dude. Look. The size I am now, I was a little smaller, but I was still kind of big. But I'm like, what's my big ass going to try to do the damn windmill? You know, I mean, moonwalking and try to twirl around on your knees like that's one thing, but to try to do the windmill, doing I'm like, dude, give it up.
The
Don't
centipede,
yeah,
doing
the
all that stuff.
centipede, yes, all the see those dance moves, and that's what that lit on fire at that time, and I think that has something to do with Michael Jackson when he did the moonwalk on that special Motown special. He did the moonwalk, and it's like, dude, it just blew up. That's like
They had that, and of course, Beat Street and Breaking,
yes.
which was a couple of movies at the time that were. I actually went to see them in the theaters because it was such a phenomenon, man, like that during that time.
Now I gotta say, as we mentioned about the movies, now this is the thing. It's not as relevant now, but then if we went to the movies, it was a luxury, and usually, and it was this was so funny. The beginning of the 80s, I would go with my my family or whatever to take me because I didn't know how the routine of going to the movies was. Now, when you went to the movies, anything that you did see, it's like it's a specialty, it's a luxury, it's something like that. But for some reason, once you got into the half, which is a little like around 85 after, I started going to the movies by myself because that's who I was. I love movies, But it's funny, it felt so different than the early 80s because see, early 80s, I can name all the movies I saw in the early 80s on my hand. The first was Empire Strikes Back, then was Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Ghostbusters. That was it. That was the first half of the 80s. After the 80s, it'll take too long to be counting on how many films I saw after the fact, because I did see like Predator, I saw RoboCop, I saw films like the second Beverly Hills Cop film. It was like, I feel like beginning of it because I was still young. I was what you call tweens. I was a tween. I didn't have no control over that. But once I was a little older and a little wiser about some things, dude, I was walking around, because at the time I wasn't really walking that much from. And this is something I have to say right now. When you're a teenager, the things that we take for granted now, then, oh my God, I kind of miss, because I used to walk from here 3 or 4 miles to the mall and past that. I try that now. It's like, somebody needs to come get an ambulance for me real quick, So
that's so true. I didn't even get my license till like I was 18 because I was so used to walking everywhere. My parents were like the ones that kind of said, "Hey, aren't you going to try to get your license?" Like, why?
Right.
Yeah. But now it's like I wouldn't go anywhere without my car. Like I take
that's the thing. But then getting back to the movies, like you just mentioned, you said you've seen some films in the 80s, but the first half of it, did you see many films by yourself, or were you with family members at that time?
I'd have to be a family, of course. Okay. Especially depending on what it was. So I remember kind of I did see Ghostbusters, although I think my parents let me, with a friend of mine at the time, we watched that one by ourselves, but that's because I was like PG and not a big deal. Yeah. I saw Porky's with my parents because that's the one where I should have went to see Dragon Slayer because that's a much better movie. But at the time, I'm a young teen. I'm like, oh, I know there's like sex in this. I got to go see this. Yes. So let's see, what else did I see during that time? It's crazy.
because like I say, I figured the beginning of is like I say,
Yeah,
not
because
as
you're
much.
always like more with your family, and like I know we went to like the drive-in. I did more of the drive-in with my mom and my babysitter in the '70s, but by the late '80s, when I got old enough to do it myself and walk to the mall, which was like less than a mile, that's what I
Yeah.
was doing all the time. So
See, and that's the thing I have to say. I think that's the thing. I think when we cross that threshold into our teen years, the more the teen years, that's when we became a little bit more independent. It's like I was like, we can go with our family, but it's like I want to do this myself. And as I say, walking around, traveling the environment, you get a sense of like you are your own person. You are someone that's like, hey, you're exploring the world by yourself and seeing what the world has to offer. And I know, like I say, going to different places and everything by yourself. I mean, occasionally I would go see a film and it was specifically with my mom because she still was, she had those kind of values. Like, say, if I go see a film that's R rated, she has to be present there, because
mhm.
I know when I went to go see Maximum Overdrive, I went to go see The Predator. I mean, this is before I turned 17 because she said this. She said that until you still 17, you can't go see an R-rated film unless you're with a parent. That's our values. So things like that, it was very, locked in on me to know that okay, you're going to go see it because I know once I turned 17, I'm gonna tell you right now, I got buck wild going to the theater. If it's something rated R, it's like okay, that's gonna be, and that's the thing right there. I was a teenager, and so you ought to know that my hormones were on fire. So if you go see a film that has equivalent of nudity or a sex scene, yes, you're going to get that's the reason why. Because I know when I went to go see, I don't know if you ever seen the film, something wild with Melanie Griffith and what's his name? I forget the name of the dude, but it was a level of nudity in there, and I mean, I'm going in there to watch this, for the nudity. I wasn't going in there for the story arc, But when you watch the film, you realize it's actually a better film, and that shows how immature I really was. That was
Mhm.
just, But in
Well, that
time,
was like funny when my dad and mom like he said, "Okay, you want to come see this with us?" I'm like, "Okay," because I knew Porky's would have some sort of TNA or whatever in it.
right,
And so when I finally got to those moments, my dad's like, "Well, cover your eyes." I'm like, "Fuck no, this is what I'm here for."
hey, it's like what the hell you bring me here for? You think that's what I'm here
Yeah,
for? Mr. B?
I'm not here for the
No,
story.
you know.
If you want me to pull out my dragon, I'll pull out my dragon, but I'm here for this.
Yeah, well, and I'm about to say something that's gonna offend somebody. I did do that in a theater one time, and well, I'm not ashamed to admit that because I mean I was a teenager and thankfully, no one caught me. So, but just let's share that little tidbit. And that's about it.
You wanked in the theater?
Yes, I did. No, I did. Look, I did this. And the funny thing
You
is,
pulled out the Black Mamba in a theater, a
the funny,
regular theater.
but here's the thing about this: Pee Wee Herman got caught doing this. I didn't, but
That's
yes,
funny.
I actually did this. So just in
Oh
case,
my God. Walter, man, you're defiling a regular theater.
Yeah. But hey, dude, trust me when I say when you're a teenager, you don't give a two F's about whatever, It's like you're living your life, you're living your dream, you're living how you want to be. And thankfully for me, I got to experience some things that I just didn't realize during that time, especially with going to the movies, But speaking of dealing with that with movies, now I don't know if you noticed this, but movie soundtracks at that time, especially in the early 80s, they were few and above. I mean, you had some like Beverly Hills Cop soundtrack, the Ghostbusters soundtrack, and some other. They were fluent at that time. It's like just little bits. Notice how the latter half of the 80s, there were soundtracks of all kinds of movies, like with which one was that? That was the third Nightmare on Elm Street. That had a good soundtrack on that one. You know, what was it? It's so many. There was so many movies that was coming out. They had so many different kind of sounds to them. I mean, true enough, it was both. It was mostly hard rock music or rap. You know, and I don't know if you noticed
a
that
lot of
because
it, like, really the biggest thing was when it kicked off in the 90s, because that's when you had like grunge was becoming such a big thing that you had like the Crow soundtrack, Last Action Hero.
Yes.
There's even The Adventures of Ford Fairlane with Andrew Dice Clay.
Yes.
So I mean, those were kind of like when it really started to hit. But the 80s were kind of warming up to that. They were starting to really kind of pick up on like, okay, because like Golden Child with, you had Rat in there and stuff like that. So it wasn't uncommon to get these soundtracks in the 80s of these rock bands that were there, which was really nice.
Which I feel is a good thing to expose them, because it helps you like say, I'm hearing this, but it's like, oh shit, I'm kind of liking this. I'm kind of liking the sound of it, because I told you before, with hard rock and heavy metal, that was my, I mean, when I got into the 80s, that was my introduction to it. And before, it was always R&B or soul or whatever. Getting to the 80s, oh shit, what is this music here? It's like, who is it? Who's Van Halen? Who's Aerosmith? Who's Rat? Who's who's Motley Crue? Who are these guys? Who's Def Leppard? I was like, my brain's like, who is this? I'm like, why am I liking this? I'm liking this. Like my head is going. I mean, it was.
Well, you brought up Maximum Overdrive, and that was all done by AC/DC for Who Made Who. I wore the shit out of that cassette during that year.
And that was a good
with my Walkman, which I missed those days. I missed the Walkman days.
The Walkmans, yes, that's another thing. Walkmans was such a that it was a new technology, but we probably didn't understand that it was like this was something that's somewhat old. Well, not so much old, but it was new. But it was like it's to a kid, it's like gold,
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, Walkmans, VCRs about that time, portable radios. It's like we did. And if you had a phone, if you had a portable phone, it was one of those big jacked up things, like something like that. But I don't think too many kids would have had those things. I mean, it's be lugging around like a suitcase or something like that, But those kind of things were so prevalent to a teenager because it was just it was kind of freedom if you think about it. It was something that we really honed in on, and I think it's something that they didn't realize that kids like us, individuals like us, would take to like water, duck to water, So it's like, it's crazy. But getting to another subject, and like I say, we'll like I say, I don't know how long it'll be, but I mean, we're just tapping through the decade here, because the decade has so much of a fulfillment of what it was, Trying to get to, I want to get too political on things, because let's just say politics is one thing, and let's just say the politics kind of shaped the world that we was going on, and knowing how things were going on. In fact, let me just tap on this. Let me just ask you this: were you more aware of the situations going on in the world at that time politically than you did when you was living in the 70s? Back then?
Well, obviously you would pay a little more attention as you got older, because by the time I was 18 I was able to vote. But also even then, I probably, as much as I thought I knew back when I was 18, it really wasn't that much. Like even now, the things I used to think so highly about Ronald Reagan, my wife tells me these things and she's like, no, he did this and he did this and he did this. I'm like, wow, he really was a shitbag, wasn't he? So I have to kind of like reevaluate the things that I thought I knew about, what Reagan's. I mean, I thought Reagan was still a good president. It's just that he wasn't as great as I once thought he might be. But, I also, at the time, really still didn't care about politics all that much. I knew it was a focal point of like some of the heavier music I was getting into in the late 80s. So like by the time that happened with Metallica and all them, I started to pay a little more attention through the music. Yeah. But as far as like really caring too much. I didn't really pay all that much mind.
Okay. Well, I just want to tap on that a little bit because I mean that's a whole subject on its own because I mean, like I say, we know the Berlin Wall fell. I think it happened
Yeah.
in January or something like that around that time,
Yep.
and other things. And it's just it's funny how you look back, and then it was times where you know people were talking about let's try to hone in on the celebrate, not so much celebrate, but honoring those who fought in Vietnam who died and put up those things, put up the memorials. And it was so much of that atmosphere that it was thick with those kind of political views and whatever, and of course we got to remember we were at the threshold of the Cold War. I mean, the Cold War was started back in like the early 50s and everything, but we was like at a standstill of like something could happen here. It's like we could. And I know for myself, I talked to this with the professor when we was talking about the Day After and Threads, which deals with nuclear annihilation. I told on there, how that I literally had a dream that we were going to get annihilated. The one was going to push the button to eliminate the other. And I swear something told me, it's like, calm yourself down. Don't think about this stuff because if this is meant to happen, it's meant to happen. And I just know that things were coming out. I mean, I don't know if you ever seen Miracle Mile or some various other films that deal with nuclear war. I mean, nuclear
I think I saw the one that was called The Day After because obviously at the time I had kind of bounced around in the 80s between public schools and Christian schools. So like religious schools in general, like I'd been through different religious schools. So like one of the things they'd always show you is these religious movies like The Day After or whatever, which were kind of interesting but scary. So in a way that, the rapture and all that they kind of dealt with, it was scary to think about what they perceived to be what would happen if it happened in real life. And so, they still talk about today, like the rapture may still end up happening according to the Bible and Revelations and stuff like that. So, you watching movies like that as a teen, you're like, that's scary shit, what could happen or whatever. But yeah, you're right. I mean, that kind of goes in with like the satanic panic stuff of the 80s. It was such a big deal. Yes. With music and entertainment in general, movies, like a lot of horror films during that time. So the government really tried to overstep a lot, and some of it was based upon their own religious beliefs of what was right and wrong and morally correct. So, and then of course porn was always a big thing that they were worried about. AIDS was a big thing because of the gay stuff that happened, and they thought, oh, if you're gay, you catch the AIDS, but even though AIDS could happen to anybody through like needles or whatever, so it wasn't like particularly with one faction of people. So I guess you could almost sum up the 80s as like the age of paranoia. It was like a really big paranoid decade.
Yes, and I think that's the thing about it. I mean, the 80s was such a. I mean, it was like I say, it shows up. Like I say, look back to it, and anyone who was basically like you and me or older, it's just like push the button when we get fried, when we see the dawn, as Prince was saying that song, Sign of the Times. Everybody sees the dawn. It's like that's basically a bomb going off. It's like it's how it was. But one more thing we'll touch on, and then we'll kind of wrap it up in a little bit. We kind of talked about movies, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but knowing that the 80s was so, I mean, when you look at the movies back then, could you say that they stand alone as far as you can't take them out? You could literally take them out and you'll still say that's two 80s. That's all 80s. I mean, it's like, say for instance, let me see. Let me just randomly pick a film. Because that's the thing about that right there. You could pick one. Yes, thank you. Let's just pick Die Hard. That was the first film I was thinking about, but I was like, let's just pick Die Hard. Could you take that film out of the 80s and just say, put it now, and would it even just speak 80s to you in regards?
Hmm. Maybe not that one per se, because it's like an action film, and you can literally lay that in my lap. You can take someone who's a new generation, stick that in front of their face. If they didn't know anything about the actors involved, they would say the first thing they'd probably say is like, "Oh my God, it's Severus Snape." That's the
Yeah.
first thing I would say. But let's take Breakfast Club. Yes, it speaks totally of the '80s, like music wise,
Right.
the look of the actors involved. You said it earlier. Another Hughes film, Pretty in Pink, is a perfect example of the look of the clothing. So Molly Ringwald, Andrew McCarthy, and then you have, I forget who plays Ducky, but that's his look and all that. So that's totally '80s stuff. Um, there are films that when you look at them, they give you that aesthetic, but sometimes that's because of the actual set piece. So if you take like, I don't know, like a horror film from that era and then just throw it up, like there might be like you might see some shop or gas station that used to exist, or like a Jack in a Box or something crazy, just something that they would see, or type of car,
Yeah.
right? So cars back then were a little bit different now, old Camaro or something. So you would see something that would say, oh, that's '80s. Like, we don't see much of that anymore with the other movies unless they're actually trying to recreate that aesthetic of what they want to go look for. So Stranger Things tries to do that.
I was
They
just
do
about
that.
to ask you. It's like, do you feel strange? See, I've never really watched this show, but do you feel Stranger Things really captures that essence of what the '80s brought out as far as what that was at that
For
time?
the most part, especially early on in the first 2 or 3 seasons, they kind of pull in like either posters or the music or the style, like when the kids are young. Obviously, as the last couple seasons have come around, they did do that a little bit with season 4 with Eddie, the character who was more in the metal. He was have like a vest on and some patches and stuff, and listening to Wasp and stuff like that. That was very much prevalent back then. But uh, yeah, I mean, I think I forget the Duffer Brothers. Is that the name of the directors? I guess who did it,
I
but
think so. Yes.
that was sort of like what they were going for. They wanted to kind of recapture that nostalgia, and the music itself, the theme music, is very '80s synth. So they did a good job with that in terms of what they were trying to go for look wise.
Okay. Well, just to kind of like I say, one more thing because we're sticking with movies for right now, but I just want to get your thought on this. Okay, different categories, and we're gonna stick with two particular ones: horror films and action pictures. You can pretty much tell what's well. Let's stick with horror. Let's talk about horror for a second. Do you feel horror has a more, like I say, robust feel than what we got as far as these pansy ass horror films today, or is it just a different time for when it was '80s?
A different time. I mean, you find occasionally now where some directors are actually trying to recapture that a little bit with some of their movies now. They're trying to go back and capture that '80s slasher vibe. It doesn't always land as much as it should, but um I don't know, it's really different now, because even going back and watching some other films from back then, so like a movie like Gothic,
Mm,
um when I first saw that, I was like, well, I don't really know why this is revered as much as it is. But now going back, I kind of see what the director was trying to do, and he made it very interesting. It's very trippy. And when we see some of the modern directors now, they're being a little more elaborate with their looks and their storylines and some of their vision in terms of cinematography. So take Edgar Wright doing Nosferatu. He takes like a simple vampire story, but he kind of makes this elaborate world out of it.
yes.
And so you can kind of appreciate that, but it's not going to resonate with everybody because it is a little bit kind of pretentious, as they would call it. So, whereas some people just love straight horror, like we love the campy horror, they'll go and just watch some bad, fucking terrible B-rate horror film, but they'll enjoy it because it reminds them of the glory days of the '80s.
Yes, exactly. Okay, well, one more of the movies, it's category, which is action films. you know, like I say, action film. I mean, we got action films today as much, but action films back then seemed like you know what an action film is. I mean, Stallone, Schwarzenegger were pretty much the front runners. And the funny thing is, they didn't start out that way, but it ended up like them being in competition with one another, you know. And it's just crazy how that. And one that comes to mind, we mentioned Die Hard, but one that comes to mind that's an action picture, but nobody necessarily says it as Roadhouse, you know, with Patrick Swayze. You know, you wouldn't think, you know, because when I saw the trailer for it, I was like, this is an action picture. And then when I go see it, it's like, oh shit, this is a pretty good action picture, you know. And like I say, it felt so 80s with Swayze with the mullet and everything and all that. Like, dude, I mean, action pictures back then, they, I mean, again with the horror films, do they see more robust, or it's like nowadays they're just like overrun with them in terms of what they were? Because
Well, I think the only difference now is it's harder for, like, when I think of all the 80s action films, like, so for Schwarzenegger and Stallone, when you look at what they were doing, the one-liners are the things that kind of make the difference. Because
yes,
even with Die Hard, you know, Bruce Willis was able to come from a background of pretty much comedy through the TV series Moonlighting. And basically take a piece of that and add it to his character of John McClane, where he's kind of like this sarcastic, smart mouth cop.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, with, you know, Swayze, who he did do like Red Dawn and stuff like that. But when it came to Roadhouse, this was like a different version of him being like this action star. Now, he kind of went in a whole different direction. You know, he went to do stuff like Tu Wong Fu and stuff like that afterwards. But, you know, the 80s kind of showed you could take somebody who wasn't normally supposed to be an action guy, and then all of a sudden he's an action guy. So now I think most of the action stuff we see now are more driven by martial arts being more a more active part of their arsenal. Because back then, you know, they weren't really showcasing guys that were into martial arts. It was more just brawn and guns and stuff like that. So aside from Swayze, who did use some martial arts skills in his film, but and really until Lethal Weapon, when they kind of got Jet Li involved, that was really kind of like the first time I'd seen him. Oh, we're going to add some of this in here, some Asian cinema, sweet. And of course, one of the films I remember from the mid '90s, Rumble in the Bronx with Jackie Chan, like that kind of changed my world too. I'd already seen martial arts, but to see it on a big screen in America like it was and had that much fun with it was a blast. But I think a lot of the action films now, even as much as I love Jason Statham and all that, it's always going to be based around some sort of like martial artist rather than how good he is with a gun or how many guns he has. Like, other than John Wick, which still adds in this martial art element, it's a lot different than it was back then. And you don't really have John Wick giving out one-liners. You know, you don't have him doing this quick. So I think in a lot of ways, the 80s is always going to be that pinnacle of the action hero that, you know, they're trying to emulate it, but they're never going to recreate that stuff because it was just so perfect back then.
And I think it was its own category, because that was a decade that had so much, but it was like you couldn't put it on one particular platter. It's just like it's so many variations, and it's like you don't know where to go with all that, you know. But, but no, that's pretty much what we was talking about, because like I say, it's just a reminiscing of the times, you know, and knowing that I know people like, you know, like Kevin, and I'm pretty sure Jake, you know, they were born in the 80s, but kind of like what you and me, when we were born in the 70s, we had an idea, but we didn't really understand what the 70s was. But when we got into the 80s, it was something that really was something that was not so much thrown on us, but we kind of took it on ourselves to say, what is the 80s? What is it trying to say? What is it trying to do for us? You know, and what can we learn from it? You know, and I think that we understand it better because, like I say, we were teenagers. You know, we was coming into from as like the group Boys to Men. and learning how to like craft ourselves into how it's going to interject us into being kind of responsibility, or kind of a showing how we're going to be in the future as adults, because
Well, and that's a lot like my wife. So my wife was born in '80, but she's considered like a '90s child because that's when her teen years were. So that's like her favorite year. Now she's, through me, kind of gotten to love some of the music from the '80s that I did. But because you and I were born in the '70s, '80s were basically considered '80s kids. So that's just our era. That's the time that we really lived and had fun and did our thing because we were just a little bit older. As a young kid, you're just playing with toys. You don't really care about pop culture or anything. It's like, I just want to play with cars and army men and stuff like that. So that's sort of how it works. If you're born in the '90s, you end up being like a kid of the 2000s. It's just so on and so on.
Okay. Well, I ask you this one more question, Anubis, and then we'll get the wrap, and I'll ask you what you got coming up. But I ask you this one question: when it comes to the '80s, do you feel that we were more blessed or cursed compared to these Gen Zers nowadays? With what we had, do you think we were blessed with it, or was it just the thing for that?
I think honestly we were blessed. Despite how, and again, I don't want to go into a big rant about society right now between the social issues with the president, but back then, like, we were at the dawn of stuff like MTV, which kind of changed the world a lot in terms of how we saw music and entertainment. Also, we talk about technology, ghetto blasters, and even Atari or PC, early versions of the PCs. Those are the infancy of a lot of that. And so we got to see a lot of the world changing in terms of the technological advancements. And obviously technology has gotten better as it's gone on, but we were kind of privileged to kind of see a lot of that. And then even then, from a simpler standpoint, 1988 was the last time that Halley's Comet came by the Earth. And so we got to experience that, because I think that only happens like every 75 years. So I think it's very cool that, we got to kind of experience some of these things firsthand. And I don't really see the curse. I do see some of the more negative stuff like the satanic panic and stuff like that is negative, but it didn't really hinder us that much. Like it kind of just kept us rebellion against it. We just pushed back. And like I said, they wanted to put stickers giving warning labels. I was like, okay, if that's the case, then that means that's the type of music I want to listen to. If I wanted to go, and they used to get really mad. So like going like with hip hop, if you remember the band Luke Skywalker, that's a band that We Want Some Pussy was a big track. So like I would blast that shit. And so that was the thing, that they thought they were going to get one up on all the people by putting warning labels. But when you're not watching what your children are buying, that's the calling card. That's what I said. Okay, let's see. Am I going to choose Tiffany or Luke Skywalker? Well, I'm going to go with Luke Skywalker because it's got the warning label. It should be there. I shouldn't have to hear this. And so I took that as like a badge of honor to say, so I don't really see the curse of the '80s. I think that's really one of the prime times for entertainment, movies, music, all that. Like it was a fun time for me. I mean, obviously through school, like you said, you and I went through some dark times with just as far as like social school issues with bullying and stuff like that. But overall, there was a lot of good things about it too that kind of shaped who we are today and what we're doing now.
See, and I think that's the thing right here. We are, I'm not going to say our age, but we're at the pinnacle of our lives where we can reflect on those things and know that we made it through. It didn't kill us. It didn't destroy us. All it did is form us to where we say, hey, we ain't letting this shit start. Like Twisted Sister once said, we're not gonna take it. It's like, and that's the thing. We're not gonna take it. We're not gonna take this bullshit. We're gonna fly through it, and we're gonna come through it either with flying colors or we're gonna be on fire with it. And in a way, I think we came out with both, because here we are. We're doing this, and we're having fun doing what we love doing. So
Yep.
there you go. But with that being said, what you got coming up on your channel, DJ?
Right now, not super whole. I haven't really scheduled much. I do have Ghouls of Midnight on Wednesday. Right now, I've chosen a film called Beleth.
Okay.
So it's one I've gotten from Seven recently. So Tony and I will review this. I have not seen it yet, so I don't know if it's good or bad, but we'll find out. But right now, that's I'm going to see what else I can fit in this week. I know that Saturday, Kevin's got his Gamma special, I think, going on.
Yeah.
So I'll be joining him for that. So I got to get busy rewatching a lot of the Gamma films. Wow. It's been a while, so.
Well, at least that's a good thing. Well, I wish I could say I'll be joining you guys, but unfortunately, I'll be joining with another friend of mine, and we're going to be talking about a film called Mid-80s on his channel, and it's kind of funny because you was mentioning Neko. You know, she was growing up in she's a '90s child. It's the same way with this person. He grew up in the '90s, and the movie is a reflection of like what we're talking about here. You know, we're talking about the '80s, how we was growing up as teenagers. This is the same thing. It's showing the construct of how teenage life in the '90s, especially in California, was like. And I think it just reflects on any of us, you know, how we grew up in our own adolescence, depending on what decade you grew up as a teenager, you know.
Yeah.
And also especially next month, I got a couple of things that's coming I'm going to be doing, which is I'm going to be reviewing the 96, because it's coming up on its 30th anniversary, John Woo's Broken Arrow, which I don't think a lot of people talk about too much, but
great film.
It's a great. It's actually a better film than most people give it credit for. It's actually pretty good. And later that month too, I will be talking about because I brought this up with the group. You know, I talked about this, how film music, you know, film scores. I kind of touched on this a little bit with Godzilla. You know, what's your favorite Godzilla score? Well, good old Kevin Lambert. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate you giving some good material here. I decided to say, let's kind of say, break down and say, what is your top 10 favorite scores done by a certain composer? And I chose right out of the box Akira Ufube, because let's be honest, the man was an absolute genius when it came to making music, you know. And like I say, he scored a lot of, you know, Tokusatsu kaiju films, you know, but not just Godzilla and everything else. He did some other scores too that are very well done, you know. And I'm gonna be doing that about kind of like the tail end of February, you know. But that's coming up. And as far as anything else, you know, we'll have to wait and see, because I'm still tinkering around with what I'm going to do, because 2026, we don't know what's coming out, but all I know is, hey, just have to wait and see, because even it's a mystery to me, you know. So, but with that being said, Anubis, thank you for this little nostalgia trip here. You know, I guess this is fun. You know, I mean, I didn't know how long it was going to last, but I knew it wasn't going to be too long, because, you know, you're just reminiscing and just thinking about the good old times, at least the good times, but knowing that the bad times were there, they didn't overshadow the good. So that's the thing about it.
True.
Okay. But I thank you for being here, my friend. And like I say, we're starting out the year right, and hopefully the year will take us into a different domain, you know. I mean, because you just never know what's life's gonna take, you know. Hopefully it's a good one, you know. But whatever we face dark times together, we'll face them together, you know.
Yep.
So, but with that being
2026.
There you go. Well, with that being said, people, thank you for everybody who's watching and everything. We're going to close it out. As I always say, y'all take care. Y'all please be patient. And how I always say it with kaijus, but I'm just going to say it like this. Y'all keep living the life alive, okay? Y'all take care now. Peace.